WrestleMania 3, 1987. Over 93,000 fans. And we've seen the videos so many times, and we've heard the voices. This Sunday, it's going to be over 100,000 at AT&T Stadium.
Let's hope.
Yeah, and for you to be there in one of the biggest matches against Roman Reigns, what do you think that moment's going to be like for you?
Overwhelming, as it is every year. You know, people say, oh, it's 20 times you've been to WrestleMania, or do you still get butterflies? If you don't care. I'm as nervous now for it as I probably was for my first one. It is everything as a performer that you hope for it to be. To think that we will break a record on Sunday, an attendance record, just on every level possible. And for me to think at 46, 20 years later, to have that moment one more time it's almost overwhelming even to think about.
I get asked a lot about my time here and about certain moments. And when I think back to when you tore your quad, and then you were able to come back and they planned that return at Madison Square Garden, and I tell people how dedicated and how tough WWE superstars are for that moment and that return. That's why you're a legend of WrestleMania and of this business. What do you remember about that time in your career?
Well, one, I blew out my quad in the most epic way possible, right? Not that it was this grandiose looking injury, but it just like I tore my quad on live television.
Yeah.
Finished the match, get through it, and then I go to see Dr. Jim Andrews, and he tells me, this is really bad, and I don't know that I've ever seen anybody return to a combat to an impact sport with this injury. I immediately said, well, I'm gonna, and I packed. I never left Birmingham, Alabama. I stayed at the Embassy Suites in Birmingham, Alabama for 9 months, and I just rehabbed from first thing in the morning until the end of day when they kicked me out of there, and then I'd go train, and then I'd go to bed, and I'd get up and I'd do it again the next day for 9 months. And when the time came that my return, I was cleared to return, and they started to build those packages, and I was told, we'd like you to do it at Madison Square Garden. It was just, Vince's dad always would say the Garden will always be the Garden. There's just no place like it. It's the most famous arena in the world, and to do it there was mind-blowing enough. But that night is probably one of the biggest moments of my career, memory-wise for me. But I don't care how big of a star you are in that moment, and I've talked to Austin about this and other guys about this, you doubt, and I can remember standing all day long having doubts, but then as they went to break before my segment where I was going to come out, I can remember standing next to the curtain and thinking like, please have them care. You just, because in some way you think like, what if they don't care? And what if I come back and it's nothing? And you doubt yourself so heavily. And even when that first note of my music hit and the crowd, came alive, it was still in my mind like, when I turn that corner, I hope they don't like silent. You get inside your own head and you just can't get out of it as a performer. It's what makes what we do so different than any just sport. Like if you're an athlete that's going in UFC or whatever, most times I believe that they want to tune that crowd out and they want to just be in the zone of their performance. We can't, and the crowd becomes everything to what we do because it's a performance art. And they are as much a part of that performance as anything else. So without that connection, you have nothing. And you rely on them as much as they're relying on you, but like you're relying on them, and to have that give and take there's nothing better than that magical moment between the performer and that crowd of hopefully 100,000 people where you just have that interaction, and it's magic, and it's why people come back, and it's why they have a hard time walking away from what we do ever.